Coronavirus did not stop the Alamo Bowl from carrying on in San Antonio last night. If you didn't stay up late to watch, the Longhorns blew out Colorado 55-23. And while Texas is celebrating a win, there was some disappointment as quarterback Sam Ehlinger just couldn't help lead the team to victory in his final game. He left in the first half with a shoulder injury. Now, before the game, there were concerns about the coronavirus spreading inside the Alamo Dome. Attendance was capped at 17%, with only about 11,000 people inside the stadium. There were a number of other safety protocols also in place, including mandatory masks, temperature checks, and one-way traffic through the concourses.
We've seen a variety of opinions about it. What I will say is that we have very strict protocols put in place.
The halftime show for the Alamo Bowl was also pre-recorded as neither team had a band on the field.